Back to part three of our mini series where we continue to discuss boundaries. On this episode, we'll touch on opening up to potentials with some hints of how to do it right and what not to do when getting to know someone new. We discuss exposing past sins, over explaining, and of course, there's always a story time about a potential who seemed a little too perfect. You don't need to give an explanation, you really don't.
You really don't. And
No.
like the thing though, and especially women do this, we over explain a lot. And honestly, I've started to realize that I do this. And I've started to slowly stop doing it because like you just feel like you have to explain yourself and make a point so that you don't feel like you're hurting the other person, or maybe in some way you're accommodating that person. And so you're so fixated on making sure that they're comfortable that you're making yourself uncomfortable by over explaining yourself.
Absolutely. You don't need to go into any details. If, for example, I don't know, you were trying to meet a potential and something came up or you didn't feel like it was right, which by the way is a valid thing. Trust your guts, people. You can't just say, hey, something's come up, I can't make it, sort of thing. You don't need to go into any long-winded
Explanation, right? Of
explanations.
why
Yeah.
not.
You don't need to do that. You don't owe anybody anything. If you are going to give them a generic sort of, explanation, that's down to you. And yeah,
Whatever you're comfortable with.
absolutely. Yeah. So
Even when it comes to rejection too, I feel like a lot of times, and again, I think maybe women do this a bit more, is like they feel like when they reject someone, they have to explain how great they are and their qualities and how much of a great time they had while they're saying that they're not interested in them. You know what I mean? It's
and
like
that
you don't owe anyone
confuses
anything.
and that
That confuses the
confuses
person.
yeah, it
Yeah.
does. So I've seen it on a few stories on Reddit actually, where
Hmm.
brothers have said, things have been going okay, and then it gets cut off, like no explanation. Or for example, the girl says, oh, things were going really well, you're amazing, X, Y, and Z, and then they're like, okay, but what could be the reason? Why did they stop getting to know me? And put a halt to it and move on. And it confuses the brothers out there. It's really mean. Just
Hmm.
don't give them a long-winded explanation. Just say, look, I don't feel like it's working out, I wish you all the best, and end it there. Salam, bye. And that's it,
Yeah.
finished. You don't need to say how amazing they are and all this. I'm sure they, we've all heard it, haven't we? You're amazing, but you're not right for me. Sort of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're an amazing human being, but you're just not my flavor. I'm
Yeah,
just
and
not
and you
into
just
you.
sit there and you're trying to dissect it. And what
Like you're
the statement,
confused.
yeah, and the statement itself doesn't even have a leg to stand on anyway. So why even bother with that? Just
Yeah,
you don't have to explain yourself all the time in every situation and go into every single detail. You don't
exactly.
need to.
You don't have to explain yourself to anyone, period. Unless, like, obviously, maybe, unless that person means something really, like, if someone really means something to you and you feel like you need to, like, give them a long winded explanation about something, then sure, go for it. But when you're,
Absolutely.
like, just getting to know someone or it's a stranger on the street or someone you just met, you don't owe to them anything.
No,
You
you
don't
don't.
even owe them a yes to anything. You don't got to do a thing for anybody because you know what? It's your life. And it's like, you got to figure out what makes you comfortable. But like, I know for sure, I tend to be the type of, well, I want to make it past tense. We're not there yet,
Was.
but I used to be or was
Yes.
someone that tends to like always like over explain themselves to the point where I'm like, dude, now I'm telling this person too much about myself. And like, I don't want them to know this much about me, but I'm saying too much. And like, how do I stop it? You've already gone too deep.
Yeah.
So there was probably like, for example, like in the earliest, when I first started the search process, I thought like I had to be very transparent with the guy in order for him to understand how serious I am. And so I don't like misguide him or mislead him into thinking I'm something that I'm not.
Mm.
But I realized like that sense of privacy and that kind of information that you give to someone, like you have to be at a certain point in a relationship when they learn certain things
They
about
have to
you.
earn it.
Exactly. And that's another boundary, by the way. Like people who like say too much too early, that means you don't have boundaries in terms of the information and knowledge and who you are as a person that you give out to people or you communicate to people. That means you don't have a boundary there. And that's not good either because like people have to earn it for sure. And there's definitely like, it makes some people really uncomfortable. Like if someone came up to me and started giving me their whole life story and the things that they're going through, and I just met them, like that's a little off-putting too because that just means that you don't have a sense of awareness about the type of stuff that you're telling people at certain phases in the relationship process, whatever type of relationship it might be. So I didn't really have a grasp about with this in the beginning of my search process, and I was very open I guess some people would say that you wear your heart on your sleeve in this context, but though I don't think that this is what it was, I think I just was just saying a lot because I felt like I need to say a lot so that he knew what he was working with,
Well, you want
right?
them to know who you are, right? I guess that's why
Yeah.
that's the thought process that I
That
had
was my, yeah,
anyway.
it was well
Yeah.
intentioned, but it was
Yeah.
like, again, I don't think that the way you go about it by feeling like you need to tell someone everything about yourself is the way to do it.
No, especially
If
not from the
anything, it's kind of
get-go.
toxic. Exactly. And so like I did that a lot initially, and especially when there was this the first guy I actually ever met in person. Um, this was the first dude, right? So I'm like, oh, if I'm meeting him in person, there's probably a 99% chance I'm gonna marry this man if I'm meeting him in person. That's what my mind thought, right? We all
Oh,
think that
bless
initially.
you.
We all think that, right? When we're like, oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna meet this guy in person. Wow, there's like there's a lot
It's
of skin
gotta
in the
be the
game.
one.
It's
We are
gotta be
meeting.
him.
It has to be serious.
Yeah, it's gotta be you.
Yeah.
So I met up with this guy in person. And so like this was the first time that I've ever in the context of marriage and in the context of like getting to know someone in this way off the internet. Um, I sat down with this guy and he was normal and he was giving me facts about himself. And then I started giving facts about myself. But then we started talking about certain topics and I just started going on for like 15, 20 minutes about things that I thought I was like, dude, I think you need to know all of these things about me. And it was very obvious he was uncomfortable.
Yeah. But
I
then
could tell he
when you
wasn't
get
down. Huh?
did you not stop though? Did you just carry on? Because
So
I
I
have.
do have self-awareness. I do have a somewhat self-awareness at
Yeah.
times, but in that moment I didn't. I just
Oh,
kind of
okay.
I just went off. Like I was talking and I knew that I was like at some point I'm like, dude, I feel like I've been talking for 20 minutes. I maybe should stop.
Yeah.
So then I stopped at that point, but then I realized that I just like, you know when you feel exposed like in your mind, like mentally and emotionally when you feel exposed?
Self-aware.
It's not even vulnerability. It's just like when you feel like people know too much about you,
Mm.
not in a good way. Like it's like when someone knows too much about you that
And
you're
then you
like,
sit there
damn,
and you're like, why did I say
why
this?
did I say that? Yeah, like why would I say that to someone? So I realized after it was actually 2 days after meeting him because it takes me forever to process things. And so 2 days after, I'm like, dude, I said too much to this man. It wasn't good. And I wasn't even that interested in him after actually. Like I feel like we weren't even that compatible, but I told him so much about myself that
Mm.
I'm like, he didn't deserve to know all that information. Like only
Poor
knowing him
thing.
for like a week or so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a boundary too. That's really important. I think in the search process, I know a lot of folks are so well intentioned and they feel like they want to be serious and they want to like tell as much as possible to the person for them to gauge compatibility and whether things are going to work out. But I think it's like you also need to calm down and just like take a deep breath
Take a minute.
and
Take a minute.
realize that getting to know someone is a process in itself. And you can't just speed this thing up in like a couple of weeks of figuring out do they fit or not? Like, am I going to marry this person or not? It's a process and you need to gain that trust. You need to gain, that just feeling a comfort with someone to be able to like start opening up a little bit more about who you are. You know what I mean?
Yep. I think it's part
Yeah.
of that. Again, the word process comes in mind.
Embrace it.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes time for somebody to, or it should take time to, a reasonable time, by the way, not too long.
Exactly.
But and then when you do open up to that person, you don't need to just, blurt everything out and tell them everything, and they need to know every dark secret about your past or whatever. It comes in stages, right? And they have to earn it, and they also have to be part of that process. They need to be given a little bit. So it's a bit
Mm-hmm.
of give and take.
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they could be telling you something about their life and, something that they think is important that you should know. And it's part of building that sort of trust, once that's established and you've known each other for a reasonable time and there's no red flags and, they seem like a normal person.
Right. You feel comfortable. You feel at ease
Yeah,
with the person. You feel like you guys connect on really important values and beliefs and compatibility
absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
Then yeah, proceed to open up and tear off that onion layer one piece at a time. You do whatever you're comfortable with. But I think like definitely I saw that too on the Reddit page where it was like with the rejections, with the opening up about themselves and the compatibility things. Like a lot of times it was like, do I tell them this early on or do I not tell them this early on? It's like, dude, gauge what your comfort level is. Like, how much does this person know about you to begin with before you start jumping into like the hot tea? You know what I mean? Like, you got to hold off on that until you guys have gotten to a point where that makes sense to do that, you know?
And certain aspects about who you are, you don't need to tell that person. They can
Mm-hmm.
discover it as the relationship progresses into marriage and so on. That's, that's when it really starts. That's when the discovering each other sort of starts, getting to know each
Yeah.
other as a person. So you don't need to put all that out there just yet, and there are some things you might not feel comfortable about sharing, and that's okay also. It's okay to have a skeleton in the closet, as the saying sort of goes. And
Yeah.
Islamically speaking, for example, past sins, I've seen that already as well. Should I tell this person and that person I've done X, Y, and Z? No, you shouldn't. Islamically speaking, those are between you and Allah. Keep it that way.
100%.
Yeah, and that's it. You just sort of move on, and whatever mistakes and whatever we've done in the past, it doesn't define us as human beings, because we are continuously growing and progressing forward and growing as human beings. Yeah, it doesn't define you. So for example, if you're getting to know, I know somebody got married, right? Everything was going sort of well. And then this person felt like they should open up about their past history. Okay. It's nothing shady or whatever, but it's probably something that many people would question, or possibly some people may reject or whatever. I won't go into any personal stuff because that's
Mm-hmm.
not what we're about. Um, so they opened up to this other person who is their spouse. And it became a problem later down the line, because whenever they'd get into an argument, the past history would actually be used against them and their character and their morals, right?
I've seen that before.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is that person may have done things in the past, whatever they may be. It does not define them as a human being. They could have been mistakes, they could have been whatever. They've moved on. They're not doing these things anymore. They have become who they are today. So
Mm-hmm.
dragging that person back is traumatic. It's not only traumatic, but also obviously it's toxic that this other person is bringing up.
And it's really unfair.
It is, because they
Extremely
they
unfair.
felt in a trusting relationship. They felt like they were in a loving relationship, and they decided, and it was, for them at the time, it was the right thing to do, which was open up. Yeah, and
About that.
showing
Yeah.
that vulnerability and showing that much trust, and for it to be turned around and changed into something it shouldn't be, it's heartbreaking, right? And
Exactly.
then you think,
Yeah.
where do you take it from there? So I think, to avoid situations like that, you don't need to expose everything about yourself and your past history. It just should come natural. And that's another thing, if something doesn't feel natural, don't force it.
Exactly. Oh my God. Can we have a conversation about that?
Yes.
That exact little phrase you just said. So if something just doesn't happen naturally, do not force it. That is like something, I mean, just to add on to the growth process that I've been having on this end, 100%. What I've come to realize too is that you get, I mean, especially with the search process, like, a lot of times you fall into this, you get to the age, right? 25, 26, whatever age people tend to like feel like they need to get married, or like they
Panic
start thinking
mode.
about it, panic mode, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that year is. And people are like, oh shoot, I need me a spouse. Like, where do I find me one? Where do I start getting one? And so online has become this new norm, whatever. And so I started that process like 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago was when I started to like freak out, because 25, I think, generally is when people start to say that's the freak
Yes.
out time. So I was like, oh, shoot, I need me a man. Where am I going to get me a man? So I started going online. And so that was kind of my way to start searching for someone, even though, interestingly enough, I don't think I actually wanted to get married. Like right now, I think about myself, I don't feel like I'm ready for marriage, to be honest with you.
Can I
I feel
just
like,
add that I
yeah.
feel the same.
But it's crazy because like we throw ourselves into like these processes where we're like telling people, or people that we meet, yeah, we want to get married, we want a husband. But like when you sit down and think about it, like I didn't realize this until like 3 weeks ago, where I was like, I actually don't want to get married right now. I don't think I'm ready for it. So yeah, so to go to this kind of story that came up, or like situation that I was in, um so what had happened was, there was this guy that I was talking to about a year ago, right? So this guy I met on the app, very super down to earth, cool personality, awesome man, like just awesome guy that I just vibed
Wow.
with on a level that I've never really vibed with a lot of guys before. Super natural conversation. We're just vibing, getting to know each other. But it wasn't until like a month or so into getting to know him, we realized like there's some very strong incompatibilities.
Oh
And a
dear.
lot of it had to do on religion. And
Okay.
so obviously, right? Obviously, I can't proceed because that's a
No.
boundary for me where I'm like, religion is something that I can't push that boundary or compromise on. So that was a year ago, right? A month in, we realized that. I told him it was like so hard to say bye to him because like when you just
Yeah.
vibe with someone
Yeah. You think
and you want
we're
to
perfect on
continue.
every single level apart from this one
Right.
major
This one
thing.
little thing, which is
Yeah.
so major, right? Like,
Oh,
this
it
isn't
is.
like this dude doesn't brush his teeth or like he just smells bad. Like, this guy was like, it was religion, you know what I mean?
Damn.
So I'm like, damn it, damn it. It was hard. That one was hard. I went a couple of months without looking, like, I didn't want to talk to anyone because I'm like, damn, it's so hard when you like really like someone or like you're just excited about someone and then it doesn't work out.
Mm.
A month goes by, a couple months go by, I go back onto the app and I'm just talking to someone, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, now I'm comparing them to that guy because I'm like, shoot, this guy was so great. So then 3 months in, right? So the process that I tend to take with guys that I've talked to and I realize it doesn't work out, I know it's I know it's very extreme, like the direction I take, but this is the way I move on, is I block them on everything. Like, I blocked them on WhatsApp, I blocked them on on my phone, and I blocked them on Instagram, blocked them on the socials, all of that. But this guy I did not block on the socials because I just wanted to leave the door open in case, you don't know. You don't know. Maybe
There
one day
was
he'll come back in.
that glimmer of hope somewhere in your heart.
Right. But I moved on from
Yeah.
it, right? Like, at the same time, I'm like, let me just kind of leave the light open on here. If you want Sandra and say what's up, that's fine with me. But I moved on from it, right? I realized, okay, this guy, obviously this can't work out.
Mm.
I start talking to more guys and I'm just getting more frustrated because it's not working out. And I'm like, why is it not working out? So you kind of, it's a cycle. We all know what it is, right? You talk to someone for a couple days, either they ghost you, you see them, and it's not compatible, whatever the reason, you stop talking. You take maybe a couple days off, you go back in, right? So it's like a cycle where you're not really stopping. You just keep putting yourself out there. You're not really processing what's happening. You're not taking a second to breathe or learn about what's going on or what the reason is why you feel this need to find someone right now. Like, I was honestly in a state of like, I need a man. Like, you don't understand. Like, I need a man. Like, I need a husband now. Like, it was really bad. It was very desperate.
Yeah, yeah.
And so obviously that caused me to be in situations that I really could have prevented. It
Mm.
caused me to waste a lot of time. And I wasted a lot of time. Like, I can tell you, there's been guys that I think about, like, I don't know why I spent so much time talking to them, knowing that it clearly wasn't going to go anywhere. Like, why was I wasting all this time talking to certain guys when I knew that that wasn't going to happen?
Girl,
Like,
we've all been there.
yeah, but dude, I want to have a conversation as to why, right? So I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I got to the realization, at least for me, and maybe some folks might be able to like, find a commonality here or like feel like they can relate to it. Okay, I continue talking, right? Continue talking to guys. I get to this guy like in November, right? This like 6 or 7 months after talking to this dude, right? And I'm like, talking to this one too. And I'm like, damn, this one is great. So this was like the second guy that came into my life where I was like, damn, bruh, this conversation is vibing. We're on the same page. Religion wise, we're on the same page.
Yes.
Like, it was great. Like, it was great. This guy was, you know what? Like, he was hitting all the dots. I was enjoying my conversation with him until it didn't work out. And
Oh.
so the reason for that one was, I don't know if I ever mentioned this story, but it's the idea of like a guy, if you're searching for, if like hijab is important to you,
Oh yeah,
talk
yeah,
to a
yeah.
woman that already wears it.
We've
That was
had
that
this.
guy.
Yeah, you've told me about that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this guy was that situation where he was talking to me and he thought he could change me type of situation of
Mm.
like, oh, hijab is important to me and I need someone that wears it because I want my daughters to wear it. And so it was this whole thing, right? And so I realized like, no, no, right? So that one I had to cut off and that one was hard too. And then I guess like there I had, maybe it was that situation because I went through, because it was like one where I went where like this guy hit all the dots, right? Like, how is it this guy hits my checklist, right? Like, whatever checklist people have, he's hitting it all. But then it's like, we're not working, right? And it's like
Yeah.
that caused me to kind of go down a rabbit hole for a couple of months where I was like, I'm not looking for I stopped looking for anybody after that point. Like, I just couldn't do it anymore because I'm like, first of all, the internet is just not my thing. And you know what? To each their own and how people find people, but I'm not doing it anymore. So I started to like, in some ways, work on myself. And so a lot of it was like understanding who I am, honestly, and just being alone with myself. Because, like, I feel like the search process, people forget how time consuming it is. It's
Massively,
a
and
lot of work.
a lot emotionally, mentally, everything.
everything. You got to be like on point with someone. You got to sit there and decipher what someone means. You got to like give them the time and the effort. It's like more than just a friendship, because like this is like, if you don't put in the time and effort, they're going to think you're not into them. And so it's like like all these underlining things. When you meet them, do you feel something? What do you say? Blah, blah, like all these things that like people don't realize adds a lot of time and mental stress and
Does.
emotional exertion and all of these things. So I didn't want to deal with that anymore. So I
It's a
just
part-time
decided,
job.
it
That's how
really
I
is.
feel,
It's
honestly.
exhausting. It's
Yeah, especially
exhausting.
online. It's like a part-time job.
It's
It's
more.
so a hundred.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I retract that. It's more than that. It's probably a full-time job.
Full-time job. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, after that guy, that one was hard to deal with as well, because again, like, when you get excited about someone and you feel like they hit everything on your list and you're just like, damn, like, why isn't this really working out? Like, what am I doing wrong?